Leo had delivered more babies than he could count. He had done it in summer heat, when the air lay thick and ice over the desert, and in winters so cold the stars cracked like glass. He had brought children into the world in wicky-ups and canvas tents, on dirt floors and woven mats, with nothing but his hands, his herbs, and the quiet authority people trusted without question. That night, none of it was enough. His wife lay on the pallet, sweat soaking her hair, her breath coming fast and shallow. Blood darkened the blankets beneath her hips, spreading despite everything Leo tried. He pressed a folded cloth against her. His hand is steady, though his heart was not. "Breathe with me," he said softly, in Apache, his voice low, controlled. Slow, like the river. She tried. She really did. Her fingers tightened around his wrist, weak but determined, the way she had always been, quiet strength, no complaints. The baby came with one last cry from her throat, slick and red and alive. Leo caught the child, cleared his mouth, rubbed his tiny chest until the lungs filled and emptied again. A strong cry broke free, sharp and furious. For one terrible heartbeat, Leo allowed himself to hope. Then his wife went still. "No," he said before he even checked. "No, no." He moved fast, faster than fear. He packed herbs against the wound, bark and leaves he had used 100 times before. He heated a blade over the fire, cauterized where he could, whispered prayers he had learned as a boy. His hands did not shake. They never did. Blood kept coming. Her eyes fluttered open once, just once. She looked at him, not afraid, not accusing, only tired. "Is he breathing?" she asked. "Yes," Leo said, his throat tight. "He's strong." A faint smile touched her lips. Then her hand slipped from his wrist, and the life left her as quietly as it had come. Leo stayed kneeling long after her body cooled. The baby cried in his arms, loud and relentless, a sound too full of life for a room that had just lost it. They buried her before the sun reached its highest point. The women washed her body and wrapped her carefully. The men dug the grave where the earth was softest, near the cottonwoods. Leo stood apart, holding his son, watching dirt fall onto the woman who had been his home. No one spoke to him about medicine. No one questioned him. They did not need to. Everyone knew Leo had done everything right. That knowledge did nothing to ease the weight in his chest. When it was over, the people drifted away in small groups, voices low, footsteps respectful. Leo returned to his dwelling alone, carrying a child who did not understand death, only hunger. At first the crying came in waves, sharp, urgent, then fading into breathless whimpers before rising again. Leo walked the packed earth floor, back and forth, murmuring nonsense words, the same ones his wife had used when she calmed frightened children. The baby rooted against his chest, mouth opening and closing, searching. Leo froze. "Oh," he whispered. "Oh." He warmed goat's milk over the fire, diluted it the way he'd been taught, more water than milk, careful not to burn it. He dipped a clean cloth into the bowl and pressed it gently to the baby's lips. The child gagged, face scrunching in pain, and let out a scream so raw, Leo nearly dropped him. He tried again later, and again. The baby took a swallow once, maybe two, then retched, milk spilling down his chin. His cries grew sharper, angrier, his little body stiff with discomfort. By nightfall, Leo understood what his mind had refused to accept. This child did not need food. He needed his mother. The second day was worse. Leo tried everything that made sense, everything he knew. Milk thinner, milk warmer, milk cooler. He mashed cooked corn into water until it was almost nothing, strained it through cloth. He waited, counted breaths, Tried again. Nothing stayed down. The baby cried until his voice cracked, then cried without sound, mouth open, chest heaving. Leo pressed his forehead to the child's and felt something inside him begin to tear. He asked the women of the band quietly, respectfully. Those who had nursed before shook their heads with soft apologies. Their children were grown. Their bodies had long since dried. He rode into the nearby settlement before sunset. His son wrapped tight against his chest. He did not beg. He asked plainly. The white women did not even pretend to consider it. One turned away, as if he smelled of rot. Another crossed herself and muttered something about curses. A third said, "That thing's not my problem," and shut her door. That night, Leo sat on the floor with his back against the wall, his son screaming in his arms, and understood something with terrible clarity. For all his skill, all his knowledge, all the lives he had saved, he could not feed his own child. By the third night, the baby's cries had changed. They were thinner now, weaker, more desperate than loud. Leo no longer tried to sleep. He sat by the fire, rocking, counting each breath, terrified of the silence that might follow. He whispered apologies into the dark, to his wife, to the ancestors, to a God he no longer trusted. "I did not fail you," he said once aloud, the words bitter. "I did everything right." The fire popped in answer. Somewhere outside a coyote called, then another. Leo looked down at his son's tiny face, red and scrunched with effort, mouth searching for something that was gone forever. A thought crept in, unwelcome and heavy. Maybe this was punishment. Maybe the world was reminding him that healing had limits, that life was not something you could bargain for, no matter how steady your hands were. The baby cried until he had no breath left to cry with. Leo held him tighter and waited for dawn, knowing deep in his bones that if something did not change soon, the child in his arms would follow his mother into the ground. And there was nothing left he could do. By the fourth day, Leo stopped counting time. He measured it instead by the way his son's cries changed, by how long the child could go without screaming before the sound thinned into something hoarse and broken, by how light the small body felt in his arms when he lifted him, how the bones seemed sharper now, too close to the skin. The baby no longer screamed with anger. He cried with need. Leo worked through what he knew, methodical even in despair. Panic would not help. Guesswork would not help. Only reason and experience, and those were the tools he trusted most. He warmed goat's milk again, thinner this time, barely more than white water. He tested it on his wrist the way the women did, careful of the heat. He soaked a clean cloth and let the baby mouth it slowly, hoping the smaller intake would ease his stomach. The child sucked once, twice. Then his face twisted. His tiny body arched. He gagged and spit the milk back out, a thin white trail running down his chin. A cry tore from him, sharp with pain. Leo closed his eyes. "All right," he murmured. "All right. I hear you." He cleaned the baby carefully, whispering apologies that made no sense even to him. He waited an hour, tried again with cow's milk, diluted far more than seemed reasonable. He had seen older children take it without trouble. This one could not. The milk brought cramps that made the baby wail until his breath hitched. Leo felt it in his own body, that helpless tightness in the chest that came when there was no answer to be found. By evening, the truth settled over him, like dust after a long ride. A newborn's stomach was not made for substitutes, not for animal milk, not for grain, not for anything, but one thing: mother's milk. Leo pressed his thumb gently against the baby's cheek. The child turned instantly, mouth opening, searching, rooting against Leo's skin as if sheer instinct could summon what was missing. "I know," Leo whispered. His voice broke despite himself. "I know." Yes, that night, he went to the women of his people again. He did not ask loudly. He did not shame them. He simply explained, in the quiet, direct way of a man who understood boundaries and necessity both. There were nods of sympathy. Gentle hands touched the baby's head. Soft words were offered. But no one had what he needed. The women who had given birth recently had lost their infants during the hard winter. Their milk had dried with their grief. Others had children already weaned, their bodies long past that season. An elder woman took Leo's hands in hers, her palms warm and rough with age. "This is not your fault," she said. Leo nodded, though the words did not reach where they needed to. Fault did not change hunger. At dawn, Leo saddled his horse. The baby was wrapped tight against his chest, bundled in his mother's blanket. He rode toward the white settlement, without ceremony, without prestige. This was not a journey that allowed for either. The settlement lay along the river, a cluster of wooden buildings and canvas roofs that had grown too fast and without grace. Smoke rose from chimneys. Dogs barked as Leo passed. He stopped at the first house. A woman opened the door a crack, took one look at him, and tried to close it again. Leo put his hand out, not touching, just blocking the wood. "My child needs milk," he said evenly. "He will die without it." The woman's eyes flicked to the bundle. The crying had started again, thin and desperate. She swallowed. "I can't," she said. "I won't." "Why?" Leo asked. Her mouth tightened. "Because that's bad luck," she said. "He says, and because he's—" She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. She shut the door. At the second house, the woman crossed herself as soon as she saw him. "No," she said sharply. "Absolutely not." "He's just a baby," Leo said. She shook her head, fear and disgust warring in her face. "That thing is cursed. I won't bring that into my home." At the third, a man answered instead. He took one look at Leo, one look at the child, and laughed once, short and ugly. "Not my problem," he said. "Should have thought of that, boy." The door slammed. By the time Leo reached the edge of the settlement, the baby's crying had slowed again, fading into breathy whimpers that frightened Leo more than the screams had. As he turned his horse back toward the open land, he heard voices behind him. Two women stood near the water barrels, talking low. "Did you hear about that girl?" one said. "The one who ran?" the other asked. "Yes, just had her baby and tried to disappear. Crazy thing, screaming about wanting it back." "Well, that's what happens," the second woman said. "You don't break a contract and expect mercy." Leo did not turn around. He rode home with the words echoing uselessly in his mind. Another closed road among many. That night, the fire burned low. Leo sat on the packed earth floor, his back against the wall, rocking his son in slow, careful movements. He counted the baby's breaths, the way he once counted heartbeats under his hands. The crying came in short bursts now, each one weaker than the last. Leo felt something cold settle in his gut. He had seen this before. Not often, but enough. The body, starved of what it needed, began to conserve. The cries were not stopping because the hunger was gone. They were stopping because there was no strength left to express it. Leo pressed his forehead to the baby's soft hair. "I'm here," he said again and again, as if saying it might be enough. "I'm here. I won't leave you." But presence was not nourishment. For the first time since his wife's death, Leo felt the edges of panic claw at him. Not the sharp, useful kind that made the hands move faster, the mind focus tighter, but the slow, suffocating kind that whispered of inevitability. Maybe this was the limit. Maybe the world was done testing him and was simply collecting its due. The fire crackled. Shadows shifted along the walls. Outside, the night stretched wide and indifferent. Leo lifted his son and looked at him closely. The baby's lips were dry now. His skin felt cooler than it should. "I saved you," Leo whispered. "I saved you when I couldn't save her." The words tasted wrong. Had he saved anyone at all? Near dawn, there was movement outside. Leo barely registered it at first. His thoughts had turned thick and slow, like syrup in winter. Then he heard a voice, older, strained, urgent. "Leo!" someone called. "Leo, wake up!" He pushed himself to his feet, joints stiff, and opened the door. An Apache woman stood there, her gray-streaked hair plastered to her face with river water. She was breathing hard, her arms wrapped around another figure smaller, limp, unmistakably white. "I found her by the river," the woman said. "She was caught in the reeds, nearly gone." Leo looked down at the woman's face, pale beneath the dirt and wet hair. Her lips were blue, her breathing shallow. Behind him, his son let out a weak cry. The older woman followed his gaze. Her eyes softened. "Help her," she said, "and maybe—" She hesitated, then finished quietly, "Maybe she'll help you." Leo did not ask questions. He stepped aside and let them in, unaware that the last road he had not yet walked had just opened before him. The woman was lighter than Leo expected. When he took her from the elder's arms, her body weighed no more than a bundle of wet clothes, all bone and chill beneath soaked fabric. River water dripped onto the packed earth as he carried her inside, each step careful, deliberate. He laid her near the fire, rolled a blanket beneath her shoulders, and set to work without pause. Habit took over where thought failed. He stripped away the wet dress, replaced it with dry cloth, rubbed her limbs briskly to bring blood back to the surface. He fed the fire until it snapped and hissed, then crushed leaves and bark in a stone bowl, the familiar bitter green smell rising as he worked. She shivered, teeth chattering, breath shallow and uneven. "Stay," he murmured, not sure who he was speaking to, her, himself, the night that had nearly taken her. "Stay." The elder woman hovered at the doorway, hands clasped tight. "She was still breathing when I pulled her free," she said. "Barely." "That's enough," Leo replied. "Barely is enough." He tipped a few drops of warm infusion between the woman's lips. She swallowed weakly, coughed, then settled. Color crept back into her cheeks, faint as dawn. Behind him, the baby cried. The sound cut through Leo like a blade. He turned, heart tightening. The cry was thin now, exhausted, more air than sound. He crossed the room, lifted his son, pressed him close, rocking with a rhythm that came from somewhere older than memory. "I know," he whispered. "I know." When he returned to the woman by the fire, she had begun to stir. Her lashes fluttered, her brow creased, as if caught in a dream too heavy to escape. "Don't," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, barely there. "Don't go. Please, don't leave me." Leo froze. She turned her head slightly, eyes still closed, words spilling without sense. "I'll do anything. I'll give it back. I swear. Just don't take him." The elder woman's breath caught softly behind him. Leo knelt and placed 2 fingers at the woman's wrist. Her pulse was stronger now, uneven but present. "You're sweetie," he said, though he did not know if she could hear. "You're not alone." The woman's lips trembled. A tear slid down her temple and disappeared into the blanket. Then the baby cried again, one short, ragged sound. The woman's eyes snapped open. She stared, unfocused at first, then sharp with sudden awareness. Her gaze darted from the fire to the elder woman, to Leo, and then to the small bundle in his arms. The sound reached her before thought did. Her breath hitched. She pushed herself up on her elbows, wincing at the effort. "A baby," she said. The word broke in half on her tongue. Leo hesitated. "Rest," he told her. "You're weak." She ignored him. Her eyes were fixed on the child, wide and shining, as if pulled by a force she could not resist. The baby cried again. She swung her legs off the pallet, nearly collapsing. Leo moved instinctively, steadying her with one hand while keeping the child secure in the other. "You shouldn't," he began. "Give him to me," she said. It was not a request. Leo stared at her. "You've been in the river. You're barely—" "Give him to me," she repeated, her voice steadier now, something fierce burning beneath the exhaustion. She reached out, hands trembling, but sure. The elder woman drew a sharp breath. "Girl." The woman shook her head, never taking her eyes from the baby. "He's hungry," she said. "I can hear it." Leo looked down at his son. The child's mouth opened and closed weakly, searching as if he sensed what Leo could not see. "How do you know?" Leo asked quietly. The woman's throat worked. "Because that sound never leaves you," she said, "even when you try to drown it." She took another step closer, swaying. "Let me help." Leo's mind raced. She was white, a stranger, brought in-house dead from the river. And yet the baby's cry faltered, turned into a breathless whimper. Leo made a decision. He loosened his hold and placed the child in her arms. She cradled him, with a familiarity that stole the air from Leo's lungs, adjusted his head without thinking, drew him close to her chest. Then she looked at Leo and asked, almost sharply, "Are you just going to stand there?" He blinked. "What?" She did not wait for an answer. Her hands moved to the buttons at her collar. Leo understood in the same instant his breath caught. He turned away at once, face burning, heart pounding. Behind him, there was a pause just long enough to make fear bloom. Then silence. Not the terrible silence Leo had been dreading, but a different one. A full one. The baby's cries stopped. Leo heard it then. The small, desperate sound of a child feeding, sucking, swallowing, living. His knees nearly gave out. He gripped the edge of the table, eyes closed, breath shaking. The sound went on, steady and real, proof of something he had almost lost. Behind him, the elder woman sank down onto a stool, one hand pressed to her mouth. Minutes passed. Leo did not bite, did not dare. When he finally turned, the woman sat by the fire, the baby nestled against her bare skin. His tiny hands curled, his body relaxed in a way Leo had not seen since birth. The woman's face was streaked with tears, not loud ones, quiet, constant. "He's starving," she said softly. "I know," Leo replied. His voice was rough. "I tried." She shook her head. "You couldn't have fixed this." She looked down at the child, her expression breaking. Some things aren't meant to be fixed alone. The baby suckled, slow now, satisfied. Leo swallowed. "Do you have a child?" he asked. Her shoulders stiffened. "Yes," she said. "Where is he?" She did not answer at first. When she did, her voice was thin. "Not here." The silence returned, heavy but no longer empty. Leo nodded once. "Thank you," he said. It felt too small a word, but it was all he had. She gave a humorless smile. "I didn't do it for you." "I know," Leo said. They sat that way until the baby finished feeding and slipped into sleep, his mouth falling slack, breath deep and even. Only then did the woman lean back, exhaustion crashing over her all at once. Leo moved without thinking, taking the child gently from her arms and laying him in a basket near the fire. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Olivia." "I'm Leo." She nodded faintly. "I know." He did not ask how. Outside, dawn crept along the horizon, pale and quiet. Inside the small dwelling, for the first time since his wife's death, Leo watched his son sleep without fear. And across the fire, Olivia closed her eyes, listening to the sound she had thought she would never hear again, the steady breathing of a child who lived. Olivia slept for nearly 12 hours. Leo checked on her often, moving quietly, careful not to wake her. He fed the fire, crushed more herbs, watched the rise and fall of her chest the way he once watched his wife's. When the sun stood high and the light softened, Olivia stirred, her brow creasing as if she were climbing up from deep water. She woke with a sharp intake of breath, eyes flying open. Her first instinct was to sit up. "The baby," she said hoarsely. "He's sleeping," Leo replied at once. "He fed well." Relief crossed her face so fast it hurt to see. She slumped back against the rolled blanket, one hand pressed to her mouth, shoulders shaking with silent sobs she did not try to hide. Leo waited. He had learned long ago that grief demanded space. Words came later, if at all. When Olivia finally opened her eyes again, she looked older than she had the night before. Not in years, but in weight. Like someone who had been carrying something too heavy for too long. "I didn't mean to," she said quietly. "I didn't plan to end up here." "You don't have to explain," Leo answered. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Everyone always says that. Then they wait." Leo shrugged slightly. "I don't need the story to let you stay." That made her look at him, really look. Her eyes were a pale gray blue, sharp despite the exhaustion. "You're not afraid of me," she said. "No," Leo replied. "You fed my son." Something in her expression broke open at that. She turned her face away, blinking hard. From that day on, Olivia stayed. At first it was only because the baby needed her. That was the understanding between them. Unspoken, but firm. Leo did not ask her to remain. She did not offer promises. They simply did what needed doing. Olivia fed the baby every few hours, her movements practiced and sure, as if her body remembered something her mind was still trying to forget. Leo watched from a respectful distance, turning his back when he should, keeping his eyes on the fire or the door. There was nothing awkward in it, only a quiet awareness of boundaries neither of them wished to cross. The baby changed quickly. Within days his cries grew stronger. His skin warmed. His small fists curled with purpose instead of desperation. For the first time since his birth, he slept for longer stretches, his breathing deep and even. Leo slept too. Not well, not long, but enough that the sharp edge of panic dulled. One evening, as the light faded and the desert cooled, Leo sat sharpening a blade, while Olivia rocked the baby near the fire. The child nursed, then pulled away, milk-drunk and drowsy. "He's going to be big," Olivia murmured. Leo glanced over. His mother was strong. "Yes," Olivia said softly. "I can see that." The word mother hung between them. Leo did not correct her. They spoke little about the past at first. When Leo asked about her condition, Olivia answered plainly. When he asked if she was in pain, she nodded or shook her head. But when his questions strayed too close to the shape of her grief, about the night she'd gone into the river, about the words she'd spoken in her fever, she closed herself off, answers shortening, eyes turning distant. Leo learned when to stop. In time the pieces came anyway. Olivia spoke of poverty without drama, of work that dried up, of a choice made because there seemed to be no other. She did not name the people who had hired her, only said they had money and patience and rules she had believed she could follow. "I thought it would be simple," she admitted one afternoon as she rinsed cloths by the basin. "Carry the child, give birth, walk away." "And?" Leo asked gently. She laughed, a short, broken sound. "And then he kicked. And then he moved when I sang. And then he stopped being an idea and started being mine." She did not say more. She did not need to. Leo nodded once. "I thought I could save everyone," he said, surprising himself. "I thought knowing how to heal meant no one I loved would die." Olivia looked up at him, water dripping from her hands, and when that wasn't true, he held her gaze. I thought maybe I wasn't meant to heal at all. Silence settled again, not heavy, not sharp, just present. At night, when the baby slept between feedings, Olivia sometimes sat by the door, staring out at the dark. Leo noticed the way her hands clenched, the way her shoulders drew tight when the wind shifted. One night, she spoke without turning around. "He's not far from here," she said. Leo did not ask who. "I walk to the edge of the settlement sometimes," she went on. "I don't go in. I just look." "Do they know?" Leo asked. She shook her head. "No. And if they did, they'd chase me off." Leo considered that. "You could leave," he said carefully. "You don't owe me anything." Olivia turned then, her face sharp with something like pain. "I know." The baby stirred in his basket, making a small sound. Olivia moved to him at once, lifting him, drawing him close. "But I'm not going," she said quietly. Leo said nothing, but something in his chest loosened. Days passed, then weeks. The routine grew familiar. Leo gathered herbs and treated minor injuries. Olivia cooked when she could, tended the baby when she must. Sometimes she sang while she worked, soft, broken melodies that seemed to come from somewhere deep and unguarded. One afternoon, as Leo returned from the river, he found Olivia standing at the edge of the yard, staring down the trail that led toward the settlement. Her arms were empty. "You went again," he said. She nodded. "Just to the trees." "Did you see him?" Her throat worked. "Yes." Leo did not ask more. He did not need to hear the answer to know it. That night, as Olivia fed the baby, her hands shook. "I shouldn't feel this way," she whispered suddenly. "I shouldn't be angry." "Why not?" Leo asked. "Because he's alive," she said. "Because I'm feeding your child. Because I should be grateful." Leo stepped closer, careful not to startle her. "Gratitude doesn't erase love," he said. "It doesn't cancel it out." Tears spilled over then, silent and unstoppable. Olivia bent over the baby, pressing her face into his hair, breathing him in, like someone memorizing a scent before it vanished. "I'm afraid," she said. "Every day I'm afraid." Leo placed a hand on the edge of the basket, close enough to offer comfort without touching her. "So am I." She looked up at him, eyes red and raw. "What if staying here makes it worse?" "What if leaving does?" Leo countered. They stared at each other, two people bound by children they loved and pain they could not set down. The baby finished feeding and fell asleep again, unaware of the choices being weighed above him. Olivia laid him down gently. Outside, the stars came out one by one. Inside, something fragile but real was forming, not hope yet, not peace, but the steady understanding that neither of them was alone anymore. And for now, that was enough. Olivia did not mean to go that far into town. She told herself she would stop at the cottonwoods by the creek, the same place that she always stopped, the place where she could see the upstairs window of the house without being seen herself. She told herself she would look once, make sure he was breathing, make sure his chest rose and fell the way it should, then turn back. That was the rule she had made with herself. Rules were the only thing keeping her upright. But that morning, the air felt wrong, too quiet. Even the birds along the riverbank had gone still, as if something were holding its breath. Olivia wrapped Leo's baby tighter against her chest and walked on. The house stood near the edge of the settlement, larger than most, with fresh paint that tried too hard to look respectable. Curtains hung in the windows, heavy ones, always drawn. She approached from the back, moving like she had learned to preface in recent months. Careful, watchful, invisible. She reached the window, and her breath stopped. Her son lay in a wooden cradle, lone in a dim room. He was awake, but no one came when he cried. His face was red, twisted with effort, his small fists beating uselessly against the blanket. Olivia waited. No footsteps, no soothing voice, no arms reaching down. Minutes passed. Her knees went weak. She pressed her hand to the glass, not thinking, just needing to be closer. That was when she saw the marks. Faint bruises along his upper arm. Too precise to be accidental. Too dark to be nothing. Her stomach turned cold. A door slammed somewhere in the house. Voices drifted through the floorboards below. Laughter. A man's voice, sharp and impatient. "He's a means to an end," the man said. "That's all." Olivia stumbled back, heart pounding so hard she thought it might tear free of her ribs. She didn't remember the walk home. Only the moment she crossed the threshold and nearly collapsed, clutching Leo's child to her like a lifeline. Leo looked up from where he was grinding herbs. "What happened?" he asked. She couldn't speak at first. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then the words poured out in a rush, broken and jagged. "They're hurting him," she said. "They leave him alone. They don't come when he cries." And there were bruises, Leo bruises. Leo stood so fast the bowl tipped, herbs scattering across the floor. "Are you sure?" he asked, though his voice already held the answer. "Yes," Olivia said. Tears streamed down her face, unchecked. "I was wrong to think I could just watch. I was wrong to think he'd be safe because they wanted him. They don't want a child. They want leverage." Leo's jaw tightened, something hard settling behind his eyes. "Then we take him back," he said. The simplicity of it stole her breath. "You can't just," she began, then stopped, because she could see it in him already. The line had been crossed. This was no longer about caution or survival. This was about family. "They'll come after us," she whispered. "They have money, influence. The law listens to people like them." Leo stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "The law listens to proof," he said, "and to witnesses." Her voice shook. "I signed papers." "They signed papers too," Leo replied. "Papers that assume harm will not come to a child." Silence filled the room, thick with risk. The baby in Olivia's arms stirred, letting out a small sound. She looked down at him, at the child who had given her back the will to live, and felt something fierce rise up through the fear. "I'm not losing another one," she said. "I won't survive it." Leo nodded. "Then we don't let that happen." They did not rush blindly. Leo rode to the elder woman first, then to two men who owed him their lives from years past. Quiet conversations were had, promises made. When night fell, they moved. The house was dark except for one lamp in the lower room. Olivia's heart hammered as Leo lifted her son, their son now, into her arms. "Stay behind me," he said. They did not knock. Leo pushed the door open with controlled force. It banged against the wall, startling the man inside to his feet. "What the hell?" he began. Olivia stepped forward, her voice clear and ringing, despite the tremor in her hands. "I'm taking my child," she said. The woman of the house appeared from the hallway, her face hardening when she saw Olivia. "You have no right." "I have every right," Olivia cut in. "You bruised him. You left him to cry until he lost his voice." "That's a lie," the woman snapped. "Then explain the marks," Leo said quietly, stepping into the lamplight. The room shifted. Two Apache men appeared in the doorway behind him, silent as shadows. Outside, more shapes moved. The man swallowed. "You think you can just steal him?" he demanded. "There are contracts, courts. There are laws," Leo said, "and there are witnesses." The elder woman stepped forward then, her presence commanding the room without a word. She pointed to the cradle. "Bring the child," she said. The woman hesitated. The elder's eyes hardened. "Now." When Olivia took her son into her arms again, the sound he made was not a cry. It was a soft, startled whimper that turned into something else entirely when he recognized her scent. He calmed instantly. The room fell silent. "See?" Olivia whispered. "He knows." The confrontation did not end there. They were summoned before a magistrate 2 days later. Papers were read. Accusations made. Olivia stood straight through it all, her son against her chest, Leo at her side. When the elder woman spoke, the room leaned in to listen. When Leo spoke, his voice carried the weight of a healer who had seen too much harm done under the name of propriety. And when Olivia spoke, when she told them about the river, about the bruises, about a baby left to cry until silence became dangerous, there was no room left for doubt. The ruling was swift. The contract was void. The child was returned to his mother. That night, back in the small dwelling by the fire, Olivia sat on the floor with both babies in her arms, her son, and Leo's, one pressed to each side of her chest. They fed together, as if this had always been the plan. Leo watched from across the room, something warm and unfamiliar filling his chest. "You don't have to stay," he said softly, though he knew the answer. Olivia looked up at him, eyes tired but steady. "I know," she said, "but I want to." He nodded. "So do I." Outside, the night settled around them, no longer threatening. Inside, 2 children slept, fed and safe. And between them stood 2 people who had chosen at last not to let go. The land changed with the seasons, but the cabin stayed the same. It stood where Leo had built it years ago, set back from the river and sheltered by cottonwoods that whispered when the wind came down from the hills. What changed was what lived inside it. 2 cradles now stood near the fire. Leo carved the second one himself from pine, his hands steady, his mind quieter than it had been in years. He worked in the evenings, shaving the wood down slow and careful, smoothing every edge. Olivia watched him from the table, one baby sleeping against her chest, the other at her side, and felt something inside her loosen each time the blade scraped clean. When the cradle was finished, Leo set it beside the first without ceremony. No words were needed. The babies grew as babies do, by inches and ounces and sudden changes that caught them off guard. Leo's son, whom they named Thomas after the elder woman who had pulled Olivia from the river, gained weight quickly now. His cries were strong, demanding, full of life. Olivia's son Eli grew quieter but watchful, his eyes always tracking movement, his small fingers curling tight around Olivia's shirt when she held him. They were different boys, but they were brothers all the same. Olivia fed them both, sometimes one after the other, sometimes together, her body aching, but her heart full in a way she had not believed possible. There were moments, quiet ones, dangerous ones, when she felt the old grief rise up, sharp and sudden, threatening to take her under again. In those moments, Leo noticed, he never spoke them away. He simply brought her water, took one baby without being asked, sat near her until the feeling passed. Grief, he had learned, did not disappear. It softened when shared. They did not pretend the past had not happened. Some nights, when the children slept and the fire burned low, Olivia spoke of the months. She had been imprisoned by the contract, watched and measured like property. She spoke of the moment they took her son from her arms, of the sound she made, then a sound she did not recognize as her own. Leo listened. Other nights, Leo spoke of his wife, of her laugh, of the way she sang while grinding corn, of the certainty he had carried that he could save her if only he worked harder, faster, better. Olivia listened. They did not try to replace what had been lost. They honored it, made room for it. And in that space, something new grew without force or fear. The settlement took time to adjust. There were looks at first, whispers, questions asked too softly to answer, and judgments spoken too loudly to ignore. A white woman living with an Apache man. Two babies, neither fitting the neat lines people preferred. Leo met every gaze calmly. Olivia held her head high. And those children thrived. When people saw that, truly saw it, the whispers began to thin. The babies were healthy, fed, loved. That truth was hard to argue with. The elder woman visited often, bringing herbs and sharp advice, and a presence that quieted any trouble before it started. "These boys will grow strong," she said one afternoon, watching them kick and wriggle in the sun, "because they are raised with truth." "What truth?" Olivia asked. The elder smiled. "That family is made by those who stay." It was late summer when Leo realized something had changed between him and Olivia. Not in a sudden way, no sharp line to mark it. He noticed it in the way she reached for him, without thinking, when one baby cried and the other followed. In the way his hand found her back when she grew quiet. In the way they moved around each other, without collision or hesitation, like people who shared more than space. One evening, as the sun dropped low and the boys slept at last, Olivia sat beside Leo on the porch. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. He considered the question honestly. "No." She nodded. "I don't either." The silence that followed was warm, unafraid. "Leo," she said quietly, "I don't want to be a guest here anymore." He turned to her. "You never were." Her breath hitched. "I want this," she said. "All of it. The hard days, the watching, the staying." Leo looked out over the land, then back at the woman who had saved his son and herself within these walls. "So do I," he said. That was all it took. They did not marry quickly. There was no rush, no need to dress their commitment in ceremony before it was ready. But when winter came again, softer than the last, Leo built another room onto the cabin. When spring followed, Olivia planted a garden beside the cottonwoods. The children took their first steps on packed earth. And one quiet morning, with the elder woman standing witness and the land stretching wide around them, Leo and Olivia bound their lives together, not to erase the past, but to protect the future. The babies slept through it. Years passed. The cabin filled with noise and movement and life. Thomas grew tall and stubborn, quick to laugh and quicker to argue. Eli grew thoughtful, his curiosity boundless, his attachment to Olivia unwavering. They learned early what they were to each other. One afternoon, when Eli was 5 and Thomas 6, the question came at last. "Why do we have the same mama?" Thomas asked, brow furrowed. "But different beginnings." Olivia knelt before them, her hands steady. Leo stood just behind her, close enough to lend strength without interrupting. "Because families aren't made one way," Olivia said. "They're made by love and choice." "Did you choose us?" Eli asked. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Every day." Leo placed a hand on each boy's shoulder. "So did I." That was enough. On the 7th anniversary of the storm, the one that had nearly taken everything, Leo and Olivia stood beneath the cottonwood tree they had planted together. The boys chased each other through the grass, laughter echoing across the land. "I almost didn't knock," Olivia said softly. "I almost didn't open the door," Leo replied. They smiled at each other, the shared understanding deep and unspoken. "That night," Olivia said, "I thought survival was the best I could hope for." Leo watched his sons, their silhouettes bright in the sun. "Sometimes survival is just the beginning." She reached for his hand. He took it. Together they watched the boys run, 2 lives saved, 2 futures claimed, one family forged not by blood alone, but by courage, loss, and the stubborn refusal to give up on love. The land held them, and they held each other.